Umberto Eco's seminal essay, Fascism, first published in 1995, provides a concise yet penetrating exploration of the recurring traits of fascist movements, both historical and contemporary. Eco does not treat fascism as a phenomenon confined to a single historical period or country. Instead, he conceptualizes it as a malleable, recurring political phenomenon that can appear in different guises and contexts. To elucidate this, Eco identifies 14 defining features or signs of what he calls fascism, emphasizing that not all must be present simultaneously for a movement to be considered fascist. Each trait functions as a warning signal, and together they form a flexible diagnostic framework. 1. The cult of tradition. Eco begins by highlighting the centrality of a quasi-religious devotion to tradition. Fascist movements rely on a selective reading of history, blending philosophical, religious, or mythic elements to justify a hierarchical and authoritarian social order. Tradition is presented as timeless, universal, and beyond criticism, effectively serving as a foundation for the movement's moral and cultural authority. This veneration often involves the synthesis of incompatible elements, ancient myths with modern nationalist ideology, or science with superstition, thus creating a flexible ideological system immune to rational scrutiny. 2. The rejection of modernism. Closely linked to the cult of tradition is a profound disdain for modernism. Eco argues that fascist movements are anti-modern because they resist rationalist and critical thought, seeing them as threats to an idealized past. Modernity is often framed as decadent or corrupting, undermining social cohesion, spiritual values, and national unity. Technology and progress may be selectively adopted only if they serve the glorification of the state or the leader. Otherwise, they are condemned as morally dangerous or culturally degenerative. 3. The cult of action for action's sake. Fascism, Eco contends, prioritizes action over reflection. Intellectual debate, reasoned decision-making, and deliberation are often regarded as weak or decadent. The movement glorifies instinct, heroism, and boldness, portraying thought as secondary to decisive action. Violence is not only tolerated but celebrated as an expression of vitality and strength, forming a ritualized affirmation of power and authority. 4. Disagreement is treason. Within fascist systems, dissent is equated with betrayal. Questioning the ideology, the leader, or the established social hierarchy is framed as morally reprehensible, often criminalized or punished through social ostracism. Eco notes that this intolerance of debate creates a homogeneous intellectual climate where citizens are encouraged to self-censor, internalizing the movement's values without external enforcement. 5. Fear of difference. A defining characteristic of fascism is the exploitation of fear, particularly fear of diversity, difference, and otherness. Minorities, foreigners, and marginalized groups are constructed as existential threats to the purity, unity, or security of the nation. Eco explains that this mechanism produces a sense of urgency, mobilizing populations around a defensive, often aggressive nationalism. 6. Appeal to a frustrated middle class. Eco identifies the middle class as a particularly susceptible demographic. Fascist rhetoric often targets individuals who perceive themselves as socially, economically, or culturally insecure. By portraying the movement as a force capable of restoring order and dignity, fascist leaders exploit feelings of fear, humiliation, and resentment, promising a return to a glorified past and an elevation of social status. 7. Obsession with a plot paranoia is a hallmark of fascist thought. Eco emphasizes the recurring motif of conspiracy theories. Society is depicted as being under siege by hidden enemies, often foreign or ideological, who are allegedly manipulating events to undermine the nation. This obsession with secret plots creates a climate of constant suspicion, justifying preemptive violence, surveillance, and authoritarian measures as necessary forms of self-preservation. 8. The enemy is both strong and weak. Fascist ideology relies on a contradictory perception of enemies. Eco observes that opponents are portrayed as simultaneously omnipotent, capable of orchestrating complex conspiracies, and feeble, weak, or morally degenerate. This dual representation allows the movement to generate both fear and contempt, rationalizing aggression while bolstering the image of the fascist organization as heroic and indispensable. 9. Pacifism is traitorous. Fascism valorizes conflict, seeing peace as an indicator of weakness or betrayal. Eco highlights the militaristic glorification of struggle, both domestic and international. The pursuit of war, or at least preparation for it, is framed as a moral imperative, a proof of vitality, and a means to purify society. Pacifism, negotiation, or compromise is depicted as cowardly, decadent, or even treasonous, reinforcing the culture of action and violence described earlier. 10. Contempt for the weak. A hierarchical worldview pervades fascist ideology. Eco explains that compassion for the disadvantaged is considered a liability because it undermines the natural order of power and strength. The weak are stigmatized and marginalized, while social Darwinist notions of struggle and selection are employed to justify inequality. This contempt functions both ideologically and practically, as it legitimizes authoritarian governance and social exclusion. 11. Selective populism. Fascist movements cultivate a populist narrative, claiming to represent the authentic will of the people. Eco notes that this populism is highly selective. It excludes those deemed unworthy, foreign, or subversive, while presenting the leader as a direct embodiment of collective desires. By bypassing traditional democratic institutions and claiming a moral mandate, the movement creates an intimate yet coercive bond between the leader and a pure portion of society. 12. Newspeak language is manipulated as a tool of ideological control. Eco draws on Orwellian parallels, observing that fascist regimes simplify and impoverish language, eradicating nuance and complexity. By reducing vocabulary and promoting cliches, slogans, and formulaic expressions, the movement constrains critical thinking and reinforces conformity. This linguistic uniformity enables the systematic dissemination of propaganda, normalizes prejudice, and cultivates a shared identity that marginalizes dissenting voices. 13. Fascism speaks to emotions rather than rationality. Emotional manipulation is central to fascist appeal. Eco stresses that fascism targets the instincts, passions, and fears of the populace rather than engaging reasoned debate. Through dramatic rituals, spectacles, and symbolic acts, the movement cultivates a sense of collective identity and urgency, bypassing rational critique. Political life is theatricalized, and followers are encouraged to experience events as cathartic or transcendent rather than analytical. 14. The cult of the leader. Finally, the personification of power in a singular leader is a defining characteristic. Eco notes that the leader embodies the ideals, history, and destiny of the nation, becoming an unquestionable authority. This figure is often charismatic, omnipotent in symbolic terms, and portrayed as a guardian of the community against both internal and external threats. The leader's authority is legitimized by emotion, spectacle, and myth rather than constitutional law or institutional checks. Eco's framework underscores the adaptability and subtlety of fascism. He warns that these 14 signs can manifest individually or in combination, making the phenomenon potentially invisible until it has consolidated power. Importantly, Eco suggests that the study of fascism is not merely historical, but a tool for contemporary vigilance. By recognizing these patterns, citizens, intellectuals, and institutions can identify emergent authoritarian tendencies before they fully consolidate, regardless of whether they occur under familiar banners of extremism or under seemingly democratic or reformist facades. Eco's essay also emphasizes the moral and intellectual dimensions of combating fascism. He notes that vigilance alone is insufficient. Critical engagement, education, and public discourse are necessary to counteract the emotional, anti-rational appeals of fascist movements. Furthermore, Eco's treatment of language, myth, and ritual highlights the cultural dimensions of authoritarianism, suggesting that resistance requires both political and cultural literacy. Fascism is not merely a set of policies or laws, but a way of thinking and feeling that can permeate everyday life. In conclusion, Umberto Eco's 14 signs of fascism provide a remarkably concise yet comprehensive lens for understanding both historical and contemporary authoritarian movements. By identifying recurring traits, ranging from the cult of tradition to emotional manipulation, from selective populism to the glorification of violence, Eco offers a diagnostic framework that transcends temporal and geographic boundaries. His analysis underscores the fluidity of fascist ideology, demonstrating that it can adapt to changing social, economic, and technological contexts, while maintaining its core authoritarian, anti-rational, and exclusionary character. Eco's work remains vital, not only as a historical study, but as a practical guide for recognizing and countering authoritarian tendencies in modern societies, offering both a cautionary tale and a call to vigilance.